We spend about a third of our entire lives doing it. It shapes our days, our identity, our future. I'm talking about work. Today, we're going to dig into our relationship with it and pull back the curtain on the huge economic systems that pretty much write the rules for all of us.
So let me ask you something. Does this feel familiar at all? That feeling like you're on a treadmill, you're putting in the hours, you're giving it your all, but you just don't feel like you're actually moving forward? Yeah, that feeling has become incredibly common.
Well, if that sounds like you, I'm here to tell you, you are not imagining it. For millions of people, the whole world of work has changed in a fundamental way, and for a lot of them, it's become a major source of stress and uncertainty. So in this explainer, we're going to unpack the why behind it all.
And the numbers, they totally back this up. A major Gallup poll found that the single biggest complaint from U.S. workers is stress. Almost a third, 32%, are unhappy with the amount of stress they're dealing with on the job. That's a huge number of people feeling that pressure. So to really understand what's going on here, we have to zoom out. Way out. We need to look beyond our individual jobs, past our own companies, and look at the massive global blueprints that shape everything from how much we get paid to whether we get any vacation time.
All right, let's start with the two big ones, right? Capitalism and socialism. Think of these as the foundational economic systems, the two main blueprints for how our economies get built.
Okay, so on one side, you've got capitalism. The core idea here is private ownership and the belief that individual ambition and the hunt for profit is what really drives progress for everybody. Then, on the other side, you have socialism, which is more focused on social or public ownership of key resources and industries, with the main goal being the well-being of the whole group.
Now look, it's really important to get the arguments against a purely capitalist system. Critics often point to things like high levels of inequality, these boom and bust cycles that create instability, and the way that massive private wealth can sometimes influence politics in a way that might not be so great for democracy.
But here's the thing, and this is super important. In the real world, it's not that black and white. There really aren't any pure capitalist or pure socialist countries. Pretty much every nation out there, including the United States, is what we call a mixed economy, blending different pieces from both of these blueprints.
Okay, so let's zoom out one more time and look at how this all fits together into this giant global machine. We're talking about a massive, tangled web of trade that connects countries and economies all over the planet.
That right there is the global economy. Think about it. Remember the 2008 financial crisis? How a problem that started in the U.S. housing market sent shockwaves around the entire planet? Or how one container ship getting stuck in a canal can mean empty shelves in a store halfway around the world. That's how connected we are.
And who are the biggest players in this game? Well, a lot of the time, they're transnational corporations, or TNCs. We're talking about companies that operate all over the world. Some of them are so big and powerful, they make more money in a year than entire countries.
And believe me, the choices these massive companies make have a huge impact right here at home. For example, by making stuff overseas and shipping it back, they can contribute to the trade deficit. They can also use really complex accounting to avoid paying taxes, which affects the government's budget. And of course, there's offshoring, which is when they move jobs to countries where they can pay workers a lot less.
All right, so we've talked about the big systems, the global players. But what happens when that relentless drive for profit in this global machine? Well, what's the human cost? Because behind all the spreadsheets and supply chains, there can be a really devastating impact on actual people. I want you to just take a second and really think about this number. 50 million. According to the Global Slavery Index, that's how many people are believed to be living in some form of modern slavery or forced labor today. Not 100 years ago, right now.
And the most common way this happens is something called bonded labor. It's a horrible trap, really. It starts when someone has to take out a loan just to get by, maybe for food for their family or medicine. Then they're forced to work to pay it off, but the terms are so impossible that the debt just grows and grows. They can never escape it.
And then, of course, you have sweatshops, workplaces with pay that's illegally low, hours that are dangerously long, and conditions that are just plain unsafe. And it's so easy to think of these as something that only happens far away, right? But that's just not true. They exist right here in the U.S., especially in industries like farming and garment work.
There's another kind of cost, too. One that affects almost everyone in the U.S. It's why some people call it the no vacation nation. Here's a wild fact for you. The United States is the only advanced economy in the world that doesn't legally require employers to give their workers paid time off. Compare that to the European Union,
where everyone is guaranteed at least 4 weeks of paid vacation by law. Okay, I know. After hearing all that, it can feel, well, pretty discouraging. But this is not where the story ends. It's really important to zoom back in now and talk about what people can actually do, the tools and ideas that folks are using to fight for a better way of working.
One of the oldest and most powerful tools in the box has always been the labor union. The whole idea is simple. When workers band together, they have collective power. They can negotiate with management on a more even playing field, fighting for better pay, safer conditions, and decent benefits.
And does it work? Well, the numbers speak for themselves. When you compare them to non-union workers, people in unions almost always have higher pay, better benefits like health insurance and retirement plans, more paid time off, and way more job security.
But what if you didn't just negotiate with the boss? What if you changed the whole structure of the business itself? That's the thinking behind worker cooperatives. They're a totally different alternative to that classic top-down corporate model.
A fantastic example of this in the real world is the Mondragon Corporation over in Spain. It's this huge network of worker-owned businesses. So instead of being owned by outside shareholders, the companies are owned by the people who actually work there. It means the workers vote on the big decisions. And get this, the managers are actually hired by the workers and are accountable to them. They even put a cap on how much more the highest paid person can make than the lowest paid person. It basically flips the whole traditional model completely upside down.
Because when you boil it all down, this whole conversation, it's not just about money and economics, is it? It's really about human rights. This quote from the Universal Declaration of Human Rights puts it perfectly. The fight for better work is really a fight for basic human dignity.
So we've gone from your desk to the global economy and back again. We've looked at the hidden costs and the tools people are using to make things better, and it all comes down to this one question. A question for every single one of us. What does a truly just and favorable workplace actually look like to you?